Hi, I'm Jared Schooley, and the classroom management strategy that I chose was classroom seating arrangements. Now, when I was looking into the topic, I found that there were a lot of different classroom seating arrangements to choose from. Now, my sources both came to the same conclusion that when it comes to choosing the classroom seating arrangement for your classroom, it recommends that it will be determined by the nature of the subject or the desired outcome of your students. So, for instance, if you want a class that's more engaged in the classroom, it would recommend that you use semicircles or circles. Semicircles and circles are good at helping the classroom stay engaged in the class by raising hands or communicating with each other and helping it with a nice open format where everyone can see each other and hear each other. This is good for classes that are in the humanities or social studies. This will not be that good for a math class or a science class because that focuses more on independent work. Also, one of the studies recommended that when you set up your circles, you want your classroom set up at the beginning of class and you want your students to set it up themselves because it helps them feel that they're in the learning process and they're part of the classroom. So that's good at helping the students feel like they're better learners and that they're engaged in the class. But if you want your students to not be so engaged in the classroom and focused more on their work, both studies would recommend that you use rows instead. Rows are good at helping students stay focused on the topic at hand and whatever assignments that you give them. When it comes to raising hands, there's not that much of a difference between rows or semicircles. Semicircles, they will raise their hands a little more, studies have found, but it happens just as much in rows. So if you still want your students to ask questions, rows should be fine, but it will also help for them to stay on task and on the subject that you're teaching. So it's also easier in rows to determine if the students are not engaged or talking with one another when they're not supposed to be. Now, say you're doing a group project, then you would want to utilize group seating arrangements clustered around in the room. This helps because students are able to talk to each other in small group clusters and focus on the assignment that they're all working on together. But this would not do well if you want your students to just focus privately on their work, because the opportunity is right there for them to look at each other and cheat off each other. So both of these studies came to the same conclusion, and I agree with the conclusion myself. I think that rows are good for math classes and science classes, but other classes like social studies, history, philosophy, the humanities, I would recommend that you use semicircles or circles. From personal experience, I've found that semicircles and circles really help with the classroom dynamic and helping with everyone to know each other so that way you can actually see who's talking in the classroom and what the students are saying. But when it comes to focusing on work, it's much easier to stay on task when you're using pens and paper and you're just in a row instead. So that's what I would recommend in the end, is that in the end the teacher will determine it based off whatever assignment that you have planned for the lesson or what outcomes you want for your students to do or the behaviors that you want your students to have. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the discussion post below. Thank you.